We are talking Scars of Xavier. This one is directed by K.E. Buckaroobanzai, who also co-wrote this. And it's a Euro-themed slasher serial killer movie that reminded me a lot of the classic serial killer movie, Maniac. Now, this actually takes place in Prague. And we have Xavier, who has been abused pretty much all his life by his mother, most significantly. And this has caused him, or maybe at least partially caused him, to become a serial killer. And he targets women, he follows them, he stalks them, he wears a mask, and he brutally kills them and disposes of the bodies. And this follows him through, you know, maybe a few weeks of his life, killing a variety of women. However, one takes an unexpected turn when he inadvertently, instead of killing her, stops another person from raping her, and therefore kind of muddies the water somewhat, as she is obviously very thankful for that. Doesn't obviously know what his real intention was, and this maybe gives him the chance of redemption. Now, would he take it? That's what the question you have to and you have to watch the movie to find out, because I'm not going to tell you. So let's talk about what works first of all. A very basic, stripped down film. There's not a lot of plot here. There is not a lot of dialogue. They get around the conceit, obviously it being set in Prague. He's not actually from there. I think it's actually a German production. He speaks English because he's speaking to the people in Prague, because he doesn't speak their native language, the Czech language. So that's a reasonable conceit for having that. So what works, I think, is certainly I think the gore and the kills are effective here. Now it's not a high budget movie. And it's not gratuitously gory. It's not, grisly, I would say. But I think the gore that they do have and the kills that they do have is very effectively done. For example, we have a lot of scenes where we see throats getting cut, and they don't skimp out on the red stuff. This stuff is spraying everywhere. And, the effects that they've used when obviously simulating throat cuttings is done to a good effect. I think it looks good and it looks believable. And there's a few instances of other gore as well, and that are done to a good standard. Now, as I said, the plot isn't particularly deep here, but there are a couple of nice touches I think that this movie does do. Now, it tries to demonstrate the fragile psyche of Xavier. And there's a sequence towards the end of the movie that kind of tries to demonstrate, the balance between his psyche, really, where he has this dark side to him, which is pretty much what has been in control for the most of his life. But there is that side of him as well that maybe can kind of like take control, maybe the good side, if you like. And there's a fantastic sequence where they kind of demonstrate, in a surreal kind of way, the internal battle that's kind of going on in his head. Again, I'm not going to tell you what happens there, but I think it was a well done sequence and stuff like that. And well, there's not a huge body count. Like I said, I think the kills seem somewhat meaningful and brutal. And these kills are done. I think the acting, certainly the physical acting there, is pretty good. I think the fact that these people aren't speaking their native language maybe makes the acting seem a little hand-fisted when it comes to dialogue, however. It's somewhat forgivable because you do have to kind of think these actors aren't speaking in their native tongue, and therefore I find it's always somewhat more difficult to emote when you kind of see actors kind of doing that to a certain degree. But, maybe the acting is a little clunky here and there. I maybe would have liked to have seen a little bit more plot, if I'm honest. There are instances here where we have Xavier come into contact with people in his life, and it's not a long film, but maybe it could have been a bit more explored. And I would have liked to have seen maybe elements of his kind of the battle within a little bit earlier on, and it could have been a more of an interesting through line. That really doesn't come into until towards the end of the movie. But I think it maybe would have been a bit more of an interesting narrative had that been kind of at least hinted at a little earlier, but it really wasn't. So I think that was a little bit of a missed opportunity there, because it seems like a very kind of last minute decision to kind of include that to a certain degree. But nonetheless, it is in there, and that section was good, but it destroyed because of its late inclusion unfortunately is at its you know, detriment to a certain degree. I don't think this is a sort of particularly memorable film in regards to, I don't think it's going to have a lot of repeat value, but I do think it is a worthy watch if you like slasher movies. I actually think it's relatively kind of well shot. It's I think the main issue, I guess, it's just there's not a lot to it. But maybe, you know, slasher films aren't particularly known for great in-depth twists and narrative, sprawling narratives and things like that, so maybe it will be okay for you if you are a slasher fan. Overall, it's, you know, it comes across as a relatively average film with some nice little bright spots in it, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.